Rahim, as we greet you on this, the 18th day of the month of Rajab in the year 1446, from the auditorium of the Islamia College in Cape Town in South Africa, with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and with the dua, because this is the month of Rajab, and next month is the month of Shaban. We're not concerned with Dajjal's months, the false Messiah. We're talking about the month with the Lord God. There's only one Lord God. And He gave us the moon to count the months and the years. And we greet you on this, the 18th day of the month of Rajab, because next month is Shaban, and after that is the month of Ramadan. And that's the month in which the Quran came down. They may say it's the Torah which came down on the other side of the mountain. Oh, no. They all came down on this side of the mountain. And so we make the dua, Allahumma barik lana fi Rajabin wa Shaban. O Allah, kindly grant us blessings. We are a people who pray to Him, while others don't. O Allah, kindly grant us blessings in this month of Rajab and in the month of Shaban, which is to come, and grant that we might live to see Ramadan. Our topic today is one of more than passing importance. Regime change is just taking place in Syria, and the implications, the Islamic eschatological implications, are first of all, and most important of all, implications for Jerusalem. Of course, everybody understands that. It is all connected with Jerusalem. Islamic eschatology tells us that there are two cities which are pivotally important for the end of history. The first, of course, is Jerusalem, and I wrote Jerusalem in the Quran some 20-something years ago. Many of you may have already read that book. But the second city is Constantinople. And that's important because our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, prophesied that a Muslim army will conquer Constantinople. When I met with the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, in Moscow last February, and I used the name Constantinople, he stopped me. He says, I am so happy that you're using the name Constantinople. A Muslim army will conquer Constantinople. And he praised the commander, and he praised the army. But I don't think Erdogan in Turkey, the Sultan Erdogan in Turkey is too comfortable about this prophecy. And the prophecy about the conquest of Constantinople by a Muslim army, not a Russian army, not a Christian army, a Muslim army, because we don't want to provoke civil war in the house of religion. The prophecy is that the Muslim army will conquer Constantinople shortly after the Great War. Christian eschatology speaks about the Great War. Jewish eschatology, I believe, also speaks about the Great War. And they call it Armageddon. And our prophet called it the Malhama. And it is a war to be fought over a mountain of gold. And BRICS is now taking us to that war. You must do the thinking now. That war has not as yet taken place, but our prophet prophesied, as only a prophet of God could prophesy, that 99 out of every 100, it's a figure of speech, who fight for that mountain of gold would be killed. So this cannot be a conventional war. This has to be a war using weapons of mass destruction, like nuclear weapons or something else beyond that. And that war has not as yet taken place, but it's around the corner. It's around the corner. And perhaps the imminent collapse of Ukraine might provoke that war. And when that war takes place, then, he said, that the next event to occur would be the conquest of Constantinople by a Muslim army. And I have offered an interpretation, an explanation. And when I offer my view, of course, you must know, don't ever accept my view unless and until you are convinced that I am correct, because this is my respect for your intellectual independence. That we will conquer Constantinople for a number of reasons. One of them is that it was manifestly shameful, disgraceful, and sinful that a Christian cathedral, which had functioned as a Christian cathedral, one of the foremost in the world after Jerusalem, for 1,000 years, Hagia Sophia, should be converted to a masjid by the Ottoman Empire and then reconverted to a masjid by the Sultan Erdogan. I said it was shameful. I said it was disgraceful. I said it was manifestly sinful. Because in the Quran, listen carefully, the Lord God has given us an obligation to protect the synagogue, even if we have to fight to protect it. The church, the cathedral, are you listening to me? Or the propaganda against Islam on behalf of the Jewish state of Israel? The propaganda has been going on for so long, and Dr. Osley is one of the foremost authorities to explain it and to reveal it and to preserve it. This is what the Quran says. Fight, even if you have to fight, to protect the synagogue, to protect the church, to protect the cathedral, to protect the masjid. Surah Al-Hajj. And because they changed the cathedral and converted it to a masjid, to the eternal shame and disgrace of this community of Muslims. That's why a Muslim army will have to conquer Constantinople, and no one can stop it. Don't try. Not even Donald Trump. And when we conquer Constantinople, we will return Hagia Sophia to those to whom it rightfully belongs. And when we return Hagia Sophia, then the friendship and the alliance between those who follow the true Messiah, Jesus, the son of Mary, Maryam, and those who follow Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessing be upon them both, that friendship and alliance would be sealed. And when that friendship and alliance is sealed, then those who still reject Jesus as the Messiah will then reach the end of their road. There's nothing left for them. And this prophecy of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is now approaching fulfillment, because events are unfolding in Syria, a jigsaw puzzle which is tremendously intricate, difficult to understand. The pieces are coming together. And Jerusalem is at the center stage. And Constantinople is also connected with Jerusalem in the end time as the two most important cities in the end time. But when I was in Moscow in February, and we had the meeting with the Russian foreign minister, and he was only talking about politics and economics and monetary economics, and we were a small group, about 15, and I interrupted to ask, can we talk about the Quran and Russia? Everything became silent, because the Russians are very, very serious when it comes to religion, and they were not always comfortable and happy with Islam. Well, no, because the Ottoman Empire waged I don't know how many thousand wars against Russia. And after I had spoken to him for some time of what the Quran has to say about Russia, he then asked me, can you write on the subject? I then spent the next few months writing the Quran and Russia's destiny. And when writing that book, I realized that no, it was not two. It was three cities which will dominate the end of history. And Moscow is the third, not Washington. And the pieces are coming together now. The Arab Spring led to the destruction of Libya. Libya was a regime which was resisting Israeli oppression. This is not a seminar organized to lash out at Jews, not at all. There are Jews in the world who have the common sense and who have the internal integrity to recognize that there is oppression in Israel. And it was wonderful to see them protesting on American university campuses, to the embarrassment of the Zionist movement. American students protesting against violence and oppression against the Palestinians. So there are Jews who oppress, who oppose oppression in Israel. And they are our brothers when they oppose oppression. And then the oppression of the state of Israel reaches a crescendo, reaches a point from which there is no return now. It's not possible to retrace your steps anymore. And now we see regime change in Syria taking us one significant step forward towards an end that Islamic eschatology has already explained and is connected with the Messiah. It'll take hours to explain an Islamic eschatological explanation of the messianic interpretation of history. An Islamic eschatological explanation of the messianic interpretation of history. But to cut the long story short, Allah promised to the Bani Israel, to the Israelite people, He promised them that He would send them one who would be their prophet, not ours, theirs. And He would be the Messiah. And He would bring back the golden age when the Israelite people ruled the world from Holy Israel in Jerusalem. With the prophets David, Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, and Solomon, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, that Israel was a ruling state. And our prophet prophesied, when the Messiah came, and some of them accepted Him, and the others rejected Him because they said, وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْهَا, he's a bastard. His mother was not married. Allah tested them, and they failed the test because they could see with only external sight, and they're internally blind. All those who worship gold, and when gold becomes a golden calf, are becoming internally blind. All those who worship gold, and when gold is transformed into a golden calf, they are internally blind. That's the price you pay for worshipping gold. And so, the state of Israel is pursuing a mission to restore rule over the world, because that's what the original Israel did. When they rejected the Messiah, and they did more than that, they boasted of how they killed the Messiah. It's in the Quran, so don't accuse me of anti-Semitism. It's in the Quran. You want to accuse the Quran of anti-Semitism? Go ahead and do it. So now they are waiting for a Messiah to come. And that Messiah has to cause Israel to become a ruling state in the world. And when he does that, then he could stand up in Jerusalem and declare, I am the Messiah. But our prophet, Allah's blessing be upon him, prophesied, no. Allah created a false Messiah who would impersonate the true Messiah. And that false Messiah will take them for a ride. And that's what he's doing now. He has, number one, He has to bring the Jews back to Jerusalem to reclaim it as their own 2,000 years after they had been driven out. Has he done that? Yes. Number two, he has to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land. Has he done that? Yes, in 1948. Number three, he has to cause that state of Israel to replace the United States of America as the third and the last ruling state in the world. Now let's go to the Quran. And to go to Surah Al-Mursalat. And in Surah Al-Mursalat, Allah speaks about a shadow. And the shadow will constitute of three parts. And this, therefore, has to be something which has to be interpreted to be understood. And our interpretation is that the shadow is the false Messiah, and he will come with a profile of three parts. When I wrote Jerusalem in the Quran, I said in part one, he produced Pax Britannica. You know Pax Britannica in South Africa, oh yes. We know it, when all your gold and all your diamonds and all your precious metals were stolen from you by thieves who had no shame at all. Stolen from you. And then, not only did Pax Britannica pave the way for a state of Israel to be established in Jerusalem by the false Messiah, but it gave way to a Pax Americana, which made Israel strong, powerful. They were always arguing, we are simply struggling to give a home to a people who don't have a home. That's all. That was not true at all. What they were doing was to try to build and establish a state of Israel which would eventually try to rule the world. Because our prophet prophesied that when the Messiah returns, because he came, and they saw him, now listen carefully to my words, they saw him crucified on the cross before their very eyes. I did not say he was crucified. No. I said they saw him crucified on the cross before their very eyes. Is that what I said? And they saw it because Allah made it appear like that. And if you were there, you would see him crucified. And if I was there, I would see him crucified. But no, Allah says, no, he did not die, he was not crucified. But Allah made it appear like that. And Allah raised him unto himself. And so he came and he left and will return. And Allah's messenger said, when he comes back, he will come back as an Hakimul Adil, someone who will rule, and will rule with justice. So the Messiah who will stand up in Jerusalem tomorrow, declaring, I am the Messiah, but he would not be, he would be Dajjal. He has to show them that I'm ruling the world. And in order to do that, he has to show them that I'm ruling the Arab world first. If you want to rule the world from Jerusalem, you've got to start by ruling the Arab world. And if you want to rule the Arab world, you start with Libya. Because Saudi Arabia, I used to say that Saudi Arabia and Israel were sisters 25 years ago, but I was wrong. 25 years ago, they were only cousins. Now they're sisters. Now they're sisters. Why don't you smile? What's wrong with you? Escaped on. 25 years ago, Saudi Arabia and Israel were only cousins. Now they're sisters. And all the rest of the Arab countries, not the people, the governments, not the people, the governments, must be in a state of submission to Israel. And all those who resist Israel must be destroyed. And that's why you now have Trump in Washington to finish up the job. Every single country within that region which is resisting Israel must be destroyed. Why? So that Israel can show the world we rule the Arab world. The whole Arab world is now in submission to us, so now it's only the rest of the world. And so Libya went, and Iraq went. You know the story, the bogus story. They tell lies. Oh my gosh, these people tell lies without any embarrassment. Without any embarrassment, as though there is no such thing as moral integrity in them. None. They tell lies. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So Desert Storm to destroy Iraq, to destroy Libya. And because Syria was resisting Israel, and Russia had intervened. Russia had intervened to save and to support the Syrian regime because there are Christians in Syria. And if you allow these jihadists with weapons supplied by the Israeli Mossad and weapons supplied by the CIA and all the American dollars and so on, if they take over, there will be a slaughter. They will slaughter all the Christians. So Russia intervened to try to save Syria from becoming another Libya. And for the last 10 years, the struggle was going on. And so you had October the 7th, was it? 2023. And did you know the secret? How all the weapons reached to Gaza? Did anyone tell you? How all the drones reached to Gaza? I'm telling you the secret with Santa Claus. Yeah, it was Santa Claus. But Hamas, they don't know about Santa Claus. They didn't know who was sending the weapons. And they believed it was coming from the heavens above. And they were being set up. There will be a judgment day when the truth will be revealed and I'll be validated. They wanted to have another 9/11. There are three kinds of lies, I used to say. There are normal lies, and then there are great lies, and then there is 9/11. You commit a monstrous act of terrorism, and then you blame it on your enemy. And then you exploit this act of terrorism to advance your political and military agenda. That's what they did in 9/11, and that's what the government of Israel did from September the 7th. The rest, you can think it out. And one of the first objectives was to destroy Hamas. I don't use the term Hamas. I call them the Islamic resistance. They know how to fight. I admire them for their spirit, but they don't have much upstairs. There, more peanuts upstairs, like Afghanistan. Afghanistan knows how to fight, but Afghanistan doesn't have the intellectual capacity to understand what is being done. And so they have succeeded in inflicting grievous wounds on Hamas as well as on Hezbollah. And now they are boasting. The Israeli government is boasting. We have succeeded in regime change in Syria. Which means that it was the Israeli Mossad at work. And so these jihadists, I choose my words carefully, which have taken over Syria, are Israel's puppy dogs. That's right. And it was not only Israel boasting, but also Biden. Before he says goodbye, he wanted to have a good show. And he's boasting that we have succeeded with regime change in Syria, which means that the CIA was involved. So Cape Town, when you start celebrating the fall of Assad, just remember that while Assad was there, despite whatever be his failings, while Assad was there, at least Syria was resisting Israeli oppression. And now Syria is in a state of submission. And all that now remains is Iran and Yemen. All the rest are in submission. And Israel is advancing towards that day when the entire region, the environment in which Israel is located, will all be in a state of submission to Israel. Now then, our prophet prophesied before the Messiah returns that Allah Most High would send someone who will revive this world of Islam, which is now cluttered with 50-something so-called Muslim countries, and reunify the whole world of Islam as one holy state, the Khilafah state. And he is known as the Imam al-Mahdi. He said that a Muslim ruler would die, a Khalifa. And when he dies, there would be disagreement concerning succession. 25, 30 years ago, I suggested it's going to be a Saudi king. And it appears now that when Salman dies, that the disagreement will commence. I don't know for how long it will continue, because not all the Saudi family like this MBS, Salman's son. During that time of disagreement concerning succession, a man will come out of Medina and hurry to Mecca. And in Mecca, he will declare himself to be the Mahdi. When that happens, that is the last significant threat to Israel. Because this man is going to restore the Khilafah state and unify the world of Islam. When he declares himself to be the Mahdi, then our Prophet said that an army will come from Damascus to attack him. And so long as Assad was there, we could not truly understand how this will take place. An army will come from Damascus to attack the Mahdi. And when that army has crossed Medina and is on its way to Mecca, in between Medina and Mecca, the earthquake will occur. The earth will open and swallow that army. And that is a sign confirming this is not a bogus CIA Mahdi. This is the true Mahdi. And so now, from Cape Town, on the occasion of this seminar, we are able to anticipate with some clarity that those who now have taken over power in Damascus will continue to control Damascus until that day. And it is that army of Israel's puppy dogs who will come to attack the Mahdi, and that army will be swallowed by the earth when it opens. The army of the Mahdi will eventually succeed in taking control of the Arab Peninsula. And that's goodbye to Saudi Arabia. When the Mahdi comes, goodbye to Saudi Arabia. I was in Manhattan lecturing on this topic 30 years ago, and I was not aware that the Kuwaiti ambassador was sitting right in front of me. I didn't know that. And I said, when the Mahdi comes, goodbye to Saudi Arabia, goodbye to Kuwait. Yes, because now a Khilafah state will be established in Mecca. But there is parallel to this something else that will be taking place, and that is the Great War. And he prophesied that the Great War will be triggered because of something occurring in the north of Syria. It is so puzzling, it's difficult to anticipate what's going to happen. Because as Dr. Olsri has correctly explained just now, you have so many different forces at work. Israel is an actor in Syria now. The Israeli army is an actor in Israel. The Turkish army is an actor in Israel at this time. The American armed forces are actors in Israel at this time. In Syria at this time. The Israeli puppy dogs who control Damascus, they are an actor in Israel, in Syria at this time. And they don't want Russia to leave. The Americans want them to tell the Russians, pack up and get out, close down your bases. But now they're saying to the Russians, please stay. So Russia is still an actor, a military actor in Syria. So it's a complex situation there, and the most cunning of all actors involved in this is Erdogan. Erdogan. And we don't know, he plays, both sides, because his objective is to restore an Ottoman Empire. I don't want to spend all the time left with me, I only have a few minutes left, with expanding more on an Islamic eschatological explanation of the implications of regime change. But Russia has a strategic role to play in Syria, and that has to be understood from the Quran. And you have to go to Surah Rum of the Quran to understand what is the role that Russia has to play remaining in Syria. Russia today is the most powerful military force in the world. I said this many years ago. They thought I was dreaming. No, now they're recognizing. If Russia did not have this military power, there would have been regime change in Venezuela long ago. Oh yes. Why did Russia and Iran not come to the help of Assad to save his regime? Let me answer that question and we'll end. What happened in Syria, regime change in Syria, was connected with Ukraine. The modern West cannot allow Russia to defeat Ukraine. No. The implications for world politics will be too much for them. It will be too serious a loss for the modern West, too embarrassing for Russia to defeat Ukraine. But Ukraine is on the verge of collapse. And you have a new American president who is saying, or he used to say it, I will stop that war in 1 day. Maybe now he's saying 1 year. But it is now clear that the war in Ukraine cannot continue indefinitely. And so what to do? How to save us from this tremendous embarrassment? How can we get Ukraine off the hook? Answer: Israel's puppy dogs were told when to attack. And the plan appears to me to have been to try to put a bait for Russia and Iran to intervene to save Assad. And if Russia and Iran had taken that bait, then NATO would have intervened. And then you had a big war. And Ukraine would have been saved. But Russia saw the plan. And Russia said, I'm not intervening. And Russia advised Iran not to intervene. Russia preferred to sacrifice Assad rather than to lose the opportunity of victory in Ukraine. And Trump was not at all happy about that, at all. Trump was very disappointed. So when Assad was told, Russia is not going to intervene to save you, Iran is not going to intervene, he said, there's no sense continuing the bloodshed. So he packed up and he left, and the Syrian armed forces said, no need to continue to fight. There's no sense. And that's why the takeover of Syria took place so quickly without so much bloodshed. And the implication, therefore, of regime change in Syria is that nothing left now to save Ukraine. I thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.